Now, over the years, both cars and the oil that goes in them have changed. For instance, in my old Toyota Celica here, but a modern car like this Toyota Matrix that has variable valve timing, it's much more complex and really requires a synthetic oil. I use conventional motor oil and change it every 3,000 miles. That's how older cars were made.
Have you ever wondered how a simple oil change could destroy an engine faster than neglecting it? The truth is, most DIYers and even some mechanics miss a tiny step that silently dooms engines. A leftover gasket or a smear of grime can cause catastrophic oil loss within minutes of driving. Sounds unbelievable? In just a moment, I'll show you how this hidden danger works and why avoiding it could save your car and your wallet from disaster. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. What if the deadliest threat to your engine isn't the used oil you just drained out, but the one small thing that clings on after you think the job is done? Most people believe the oil change process is simple. Grab a wrench, loosen the filter, twist it off, and toss it in the bin before threading the new one back on. It feels routine, something you can almost do without thinking. But hidden in that quick exchange is a single oversight that has destroyed more engines than people realize. The thin black gasket that's supposed to come off with the filter can sometimes stay stuck behind.
And if you're going to change your oil that less frequently, you really need a better oil filter than some of the cheap ones that don't filter that well. In the case of this 2007 Matrix, Toyota requires 5,000 mile oil changes. But how can you tell if the filter's better or not? Well, first let's weigh them to see which has more material in them.
Picture this. You've just drained the oil, tightened the plug, pre-filled the new filter, and you're confident everything's right. The old filter went into the trash. The new one threads in smoothly. You start tightening it by hand until resistance appears, then give it that final snug twist. Everything feels solid, so you seal up the hood and pat yourself on the back for keeping up on maintenance. The car starts up, the engine purrs, and you think you've nailed it. But here's the hidden truth. If that old gasket was still plastered to the engine block, you've just created a weak seal, and what comes next can only end one way. It doesn't take much. A stubborn gasket can glue itself in place, nearly invisible once you've got dirty hands and a dimly lit workspace. Sometimes a bit of grit or hardened oil locks it on. When you screw the new filter on top, it crushes against the leftover gasket. That's known in the industry as a double gasket failure, and it's one of the most common paths to catastrophic oil loss. The filter might look secure from the outside, but inside the seal is compromised. Once you fire up the engine, the pump presses oil through the filter under extreme force. Think of the pressure like a fire hose. Steady, relentless, and looking for any gap to escape. The gasket is the barrier holding that force in check. But with two gaskets piled together, or with a tiny flaw in the surface, that barrier is weak. Instead of containing the fluid, it becomes a blowout point. Oil doesn't seep out slowly. It gushes, pouring out faster than most drivers can react. Something as trivial as a rubber ring you didn't notice can dump all your oil in less than a minute. That's why so many engines don't fail, because people ignored changing the oil, but because they installed the new filter over an old gasket without realizing it. A double gasket failure doesn't give you time, it doesn't give much warning, and it absolutely doesn't care how careful you were about choosing the right oil or how perfectly you torqued the drain plug. The sad part is how common this looks in practice. Imagine a simple Saturday afternoon job in a driveway. Someone unscrews the old filter, slips in the new one, feels the snug fit, and wipes their hands clean. They think they've done everything right. The level checks out, the car starts, there's pride in having handled it themselves. But within seconds of pulling out of the driveway, oil is spraying across the pavement, and the engine is suddenly running on nothing but bare metal against metal. Here's the reality. That leftover gasket means your filter isn't sealing at all. In seconds, quarts of oil can vanish, and in minutes, the damage is beyond repair. Many drivers never see it coming, and when they finally catch the warning light, it's already too late. In the next section, we're going to break down exactly why those few moments of lost pressure destroy engines so quickly, and why most people don't realize it's happening until their car is already finished. Imagine this. You've just finished changing your oil, the car feels refreshed, and you drive away thinking everything went perfectly. Within 2 minutes though, your dashboard glows with that dreaded oil light. What you may not realize is that by the time the warning appears, your engine could already be seconds away from complete failure. The damage doesn't wait politely for you to notice. It starts the moment pressurized oil begins gushing out from a failed seal. When a leftover gasket stays behind on the mounting surface, the new filter is never truly secure. As soon as you start the engine, the pump forces oil through the system at high pressure, and the weak spot gives way. Instead of flowing where it's supposed to, oil shoots out and cascades onto the pavement. A filter that looked snug and tight now becomes the weakest point in the entire system, pouring out quarts of vital fluid in almost no time. Most drivers don't even suspect a problem until the oil light flickers, but by then, the pressure has already dropped to dangerously low levels, and the engine is running with little to no protection. That light doesn't mean you're just starting to lose oil. It means the bearings, pistons, and cam surfaces are already starving, and the wear they take is immediate. People assume they have a few minutes to react, but in truth, permanent harm is usually happening before they even spot the dashboard warning. One driver recounted swapping in a fresh filter, topping off new oil, and being back on the road in minutes. Less than half a mile later, the engine seized and wouldn't even crank over. It turned out the old gasket had stayed stuck during removal. The second filter pressed against it, creating a false seal. With no way to contain the pressure, oil gushed out and left the motor completely dry within a block. Something that seemed like an efficient home repair instantly led to a bill larger than the value of the car itself. Internal parts don't forgive mistakes like this. Without a cushion of oil, bearings overheat and grind against crank journals. Pistons scrape directly against the cylinder walls instead of floating on a protective film. Timing chains and cam lobes run dry almost instantly. It's a system designed around constant lubrication, and when that's pulled away, the destruction begins in seconds, not minutes. Think of it like running barefoot across rough sandpaper. The very first steps remove layers of skin, and the longer you continue, the more painful and permanent the damage becomes. In an engine, every second of oil starvation strips away microscopic material until tolerances tighten, parts weld together, or complete seizure occurs. Once that happens, there's no undoing it. The only options are a major rebuild or a full replacement. The truth is that disaster can be avoided with the simplest habit. Wipe the filter surface clean and feel it with your fingertips before installing the new filter. If there's any leftover gasket or grit, you'll catch it right away. That single step, less than 10 seconds of effort, can prevent the catastrophic chain reaction you just heard about. When it comes to oil changes, this tiny overlooked detail isn't optional. It's the switch between engine survival and certain destruction, and the real shock is how many engines are lost simply because people don't realize how much hangs on that small final wipe. Catastrophic failures rarely come from obvious mistakes. More often, they start with something small and overlooked, a gasket that doesn't come off, or a filter mount left dirty. That thin layer of rubber or grime is enough to break the seal and end an engine long before its time. The solution is simple. Before threading on a new filter, always wipe the mounting surface and confirm the old gasket isn't stuck in place. It takes seconds and can save thousands. If this tiny habit makes such a difference, what other small steps might quietly decide an engine's future?